Shalom everyone, and today we're studying Parashat Pinchas, one of the most exciting parashot of the whole 5 books of Moses. The Zohar has a whole volume dedicated just for Parashat Pinchas, and especially as whoever is acquainted to the study of the Zohar, especially most of the text of the Zohar concerning healing, you can find in the Zohar of Parashat Pinchas, which has huge amount of anatomy, physiology, whatever you need about healing and medicine uh, in the biblical sense and the spiritual sense. So what is in Parashat Pinchas that is so powerful for healing, especially that Parashat Pinchas is always being read in the month of Tammuz, Cancer, and also associated with the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks are the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz, the day of the golden calf, and the 9th of Av, the day of the sin of the spies, the destruction of the first temple, the second temple, the destruction of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, and later on the expulsion from Spain, and some other great calamities. So, which is a fasting day. So 3 weeks, the 3 weeks of it's like 3 weeks of judgments that we are talking about. They're always starting with Parashat Pinchas. This year, it's starting on this coming Thursday in the year 5793. So what is the message in Parashat Pinchas, especially for healing? And the story is happening, most of it, in the previous parasha, when we're talking about a story in which Bil'am is trying, together with Balak, the king of Moab, they're trying to curse, destroy, eliminate the Hebrew nation, the Israelite nation, that on the way to the promised land. And towards the end of the story of Parashat Balak, Bilam is trying to curse, he can only bless. He realizes that the camp of the Israelites is protected with endless chesed, which means loving kindness, unconditional love without any limitation, and he realizes if he cannot use judgment to destroy the Israelites, he can use chesed, unconditional love. So he's giving an advice to the Moabites and the Midianites to send their most beautiful daughters, who were the princess and the most the daughters of the highest ranking people in these two nations, the Midianites and the Moabites, and they sending them with charms to the Israelite camp, saying, if the world right now is focused on just love, nothing but love, which means free love, those girls will go into the camp of the Israelites and tell the men, you should love us, not just your wives. You should love us, not just your kin people, and should also give the same respect to our gods, not just to your God, because in the name of unconditional love. The result is that the Israelites, being under the protection shield of unconditional love, they cannot resist the temptations of the Midianites and the Moabites, and they start a great orgy in the camp, and a plague starts almost immediately after, and 24,000 people die in the plague. Nobody knows what to do unless Pinchas comes over and he hits the symbol of what's going on. What the symbol is that Zimri ben Salu, one of the biggest leaders of the tribe of Shimon, which symbolize judgment, takes Cosbi Batsur, one of the daughters of the kings of Midian, into a tent in order to, and he announces that he is going to have relations with her in the name of equality. Pinchas goes into the tent and he kills both with a spear, and that moment the plague stops. Okay, the story is over. Parashat Balak and Parashat Pinchas is starting, and that you can find in the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 10. So now what is the story? The story is that if we go to the Kabbalistic meaning, is when Bilam wanted to curse the Israelites, he was not fake. He was evil, but he was not fake. He was a real wizard, real experience in the art of magic, black magic, but he understood the structure of the universe beyond the five senses. And he knew exactly what he's supposed to do. His plan was as follows. Now the Kabbalists explain that our universe is basically full of God's mercies almost 24/7. Why? Without God's mercies, nothing could exist and be alive. We think that the universe is made of physical objects, physical creatures, plants, animals, microorganisms, stuff like this. We do not understand, unless you study really very advanced quantum physics, that the universe is not made of matter as we know it. The universe is made of forces, energy fields, and all of them are all the time imbued by the light of the Creator that allows everything to work. The same thing we have, let's say, 3D images that are projected from a kind of, let's say, any kind of a projector. The same way, let's say, even when you're watching a movie, it doesn't matter if it's your screen on your computer or TV screen, or there's a projector that is projecting it on a wall. The concept is very similar. Electricity is being channeled into a certain code, and the code is changing, and that makes the electricity be direct into projecting images, colors, features, stuff like this, and what we see as a movie or any kind of something like this. Now, if you understand how you can watch images on the screen or on the wall using that technology, which is all computer digitized technology, you should understand that everything we experience in this physical world works exactly the same. However, instead of electricity, you have the light of God. The light of God flows ongoingly through all kinds of codes, and these codes are what creates what we experience as matter. Matter could be inanimate, could be vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom, could be any size and form, but it's all, according to Kabbalah, we have to remember it's all codes, and these codes basically are the most similar thing we can compare it with is consciousness, awareness. Yes, pieces of matter have awareness. It's not a human awareness, okay, with free will, whatever, but it is awareness because it is God's light flowing through a certain code, and that code is what the interaction between that code and the light of God will give you a chair, a stone, a tree, a small tree, a shrub, anything, a microorganism, a virus. It's all basically, we live in a matrix, in a huge virtual reality, although as senses cannot see the code, and senses can only experience and deliver to us messages based on the conditioning of our limited five senses and the logic of the five senses. So, the universe, just to explain the story of Pinchas, in order for the universe to exist, the Kabbalists explain you cannot have only flow of positive, loving light. You need to have also the energy of limitation and boundaries. So, a cup of water is not going to be a stone or a plant or an animal, because there's going to be a limitation and definition between how the light of God manifests to become a cup of water or to become a shrub or a tree or an animal or anything else. There must be some differentiation. So you need the energy of limitation, not just free flow of light. That force is a force of judgment. Judgment means to know where to put the limitation. To make it simple, because this is, of course, a much higher level than what I'm trying to explain, Bilam, who knew that wisdom, okay, he knew that wisdom. The Talmud is teaching us that Bilam that's based on the Torah itself, that on the departure of Moses, that there was never a prophet on his level among the people of Israel. So, why do you have to add the people of Israel? Because in the other nations there was somebody in the level of Moses, and that was Bilam. In his wisdom, he knew how the matrix works. What he wanted to do, when he wanted to basically destroy the Israelites out of ego and greed and the power for fame and respect, honor and ego, he knew that he can use that channel of judgment. And if he can focus only judgment at the camp of the Israelites, that can stop the flow of the light of God. And he knew how to do that. However, when he tried to do that, the Kabbalists say, there was no option at that moment to connect to judgment. Like God protected the Israelites, his great project that he was working on it since Adam. Since Adam, 10 generations later came out Noah. 10 generations later came out Abraham. And now, 7 generations later came out Moses, and he's leading the Israelites into a journey. Basically, the journey changed the history of mankind, humanity forever. And Balaam wanted to stop that. And God was not, he had that in the plan, and he had plan B for that, to stop the judgment, so Balaam cannot tap into that force of judgment. The result was that the Israelites at that moment were overflown with the power of chesed, loving kindness, without the ability to tap to judgment. That saved them from Balaam's curses. But when the girls came and offered them free sex, they had no judgment to tap into, in order to stop what came out. Which means we all know, I think you know, either from your own experience or learning from other people's experience, the moment a civilization, a culture, a community arrive to a place in which there's no judgment. Whenever you feel like having relations with somebody, you do that just because you feel like, without any limitations. This is usually one of the syndromes of the end of the community or the civilization, because the lack of boundaries and judgment in a healthy manner, the lack of it will create a plague, which means a chain reaction that finally will create the destruction, the demise of that group of people, or that life of that person, because it feels very pleasurable in the beginning, because that's chesed, it's love, pure godly love. But without the limitation, without making boundaries, it turns very soon into a great disease. And when people try to unleash the judgments, which mean the boundaries that were set in the biblical era of what to do, what should not be done, because like, who cares? Let's just follow our feelings. Let's just follow free, unlimited love. Let's just love everyone the same. The moment that happens, it brings a plague. The plague could have many, many forms, okay? But usually it leads to destruction, and that leads into horrible judgment, pain, misery, and suffering. And just whoever studied a little bit of history and history of psychology will see the same symptoms appearing, which means a healthy human being, a healthy family, a healthy community, a country, a civilization must learn how to balance between judgment and love. You need love, you need judgment. You need to learn how to balance and to create boundaries. Otherwise, if you don't balance the love with the judgment, or the judgment with the love, you create a disease. All physical diseases are coming from that spiritual that becomes emotional imbalance. Remember that. Any healing on a personal, individual level must start from balancing between the judgment and the chesed and the loving kindness. This is the main concept. So, after this introduction, we can understand the introduction to Parashat Pinchas. And it says as follows, and God speaks to Moses, saying, verse 11, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron הכהן, השיב את חמתי מעל בני ישראל, בקנאו את קנאתי בתוכם, ולא כיליתי את בני ישראל בקנאתי. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, he brought back my rage from upon the children of Israel when he brought my jealousy within them, and I did not destroy the Israelites in my jealousy. Therefore, verse 12, לכן אמור הנני נותן לו את בריתי שלום. Therefore tell him that I'm giving him my covenant, shalom. Shalom is not exactly peace, like most people think. You know, different languages, the same word covers different meanings. The word shalom is being used in Hebrew in the context of peace, but the source of this word is shalem, complete, a whole, which means, what does it mean, shalom? It is wholeness, completion, and harmony. This is what shalom is about. So when do you have shalom? When you have the balance between the judgment, and with judgment is not evil. Judgment is a necessity. When there is a harmony between judgment on one side and emotional love on the other side, when you can synthesize both into love within the limitations of what is appropriate, you have shalom, which means peace and harmony. That is also the core frequency of individual health and community health. And more than that, civilization health, which means the secret of real peace in the world is in these verses. Let me try and explain. The Torah is using here a very powerful word. When God is telling Moses to tell Pinhas that he gives him a special role, because why it says in the beginning that he was the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the priest. Now, we have to learn from the historical fact. When Aaron was inaugurated, or he was anointed to become the Kohen, the godly messenger of unconditional love and mercy, which means loving kindness, chesed, that was the Kohen. Pinchas was already born, and he was not anointed, only his grandfather Aaron and his father and his father's siblings. Only them got the priesthood, and the children that were born later on. Pinchas did not receive the priesthood. Okay? However, since Pinchas, stopped the plague, and what he did basically generate a new kind of chesed. When Aaron received the priesthood, the kehuna, the Zohar was teaching us, when we studied the parashot of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra, we read about it, we learned about it a few times. Why was Aaron chosen to be the Kohen? And the answer that the Zohar is gave, because his actions brought him to a place in which God had to choose him as a Kohen. Why? He was the person that people felt love from him, because he was the one to bring always peace between members of family, couples, neighbors, partners, you just name it. He really cared about it. However, there was something missing in his great, amazing love that cannot be disputed, because that power is still vibrating in our universe till today. And every time the Kohanim bless the people, the priestly benediction, Birkat Kohanim, which in Israel it's every morning, okay, in Shacharit, and okay, we have that amazing power still there for us to tap into it. But when the Erev Rav tried to force Aaron to create the golden calf, he could not say no. There was, like, his unconditional love was not able to put and to create a boundary. Here Pinchas created exactly the corrected chesed. Yes, there should be the power of chesed, loving kindness. However, that should come with a bit of judgment in it to create the boundaries Okay, and therefore, the word that is mentioned over here is the word Brit. Now, Brit in Hebrew, you have a double meaning. Brit means the covenant of peace. But Brit means also circumcision. In Hebrew, it's also called Brit. Why the same word? And the answer is because circumcision is about bringing the child into the covenant. And what does it mean, the covenant? What does it mean, a covenant? A covenant means that you have to respect the rules. You have to respect your commitment. You cannot follow your whims, desires, and all kinds of lust or comfort when you are in a covenant. A covenant is higher than the immediate gratification. That is the base of everything. So Pinchas, with his soul, he has his sources, according to the Arizal, with Isaac, the first child that was circumcised on the 8th day, that he really got the covenant properly. Pinchas is also, as the Talmud is teaching us, Pinchas, this is Elijah the prophet. Pinchas never died. He lived for centuries, and as his life moved on, he was so angelic that people, instead of calling him Pinchas, he was called Eliyahu Hanavi, which I won't go into it, but it's a very kind of godly name, because the names of God are in that, two of the names of God that symbolize mercy and love and chesed are in the name Eliyahu Hanavi. You have the Aleph Lamed El, which is chesed, and Yud Kei Vav Kei, Eliyahu Ha-Navi. You have Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the name of grace, mercy. Okay, so when both of them together, yet Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. So, and we know that Elijah the prophet never died. He went to the heavens in a chariot of fire. And he's still coming back when we invite him to come back in many occasions. The most famous of them all is circumcision, the ceremony of the covenant. Brit Milah, the covenant. And how the mohel, the person who is making the circumcision, how does he start the sermon of circumcision? Using this word that we just read. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Yeshiv et Chamati, Hineni noten lo et briti shalom. These verses, every ceremony for thousands of years of Brit Milah, circumcision, in the Jewish tradition, starts with mentioning these words. Then the chair of Elijah is being announced. The child is being put on the chair of Elijah, and now the ceremony can go on and finalize. This is very important to remember, because what is about circumcision? It's not in Hebrew. You don't say circumcision. You say Brit, the covenant. Covenant is about one thing. You have a commitment for rules. And the commitment means our world is about connecting to God's grace. This is the role, this is the job, this is the goal. There's no other real goal. However, you need to keep the covenant in order to be able to harness that grace. Without it, destroying you. We know, we spoke about the example of electricity and screens and stuff like this. We all know that electricity, raw, naked electricity, can kill, can destroy cities, right? Without the balance of the plus, the minus, filament, resistors, whatever. If that is power the raw naked power of electricity is unleashed, that would be a great disaster. God's light is much more intense, much more powerful, includes much more than the electricity of the grid in your neighborhood. Of course it is much more powerful. So of course if you connect to it, to the raw naked energy, that is disastrous. It can create huge destruction. How do you harness that power without the danger? And the answer is covenant. You need to be committed to the rules of self-conduct, of self-restraint, and that's exactly the source of real healing. So Pinchas is introducing a new kind of chesed. On one hand, it says over here, he basically healed the camp of the Israelites when he did what he did. He did it only for one purpose, to save the Israelites and to stop the plague. He knew, one of the proofs are, as the Zohar is teaching us, he knew the people of Shimon, the tribe of Shimon, were really a kind of the way that the Torah is describing them, since the father of the tribe, Shimon himself, they were really powerful and zealous, and where you ignited their anger, they could destroy cities. He knew they were going to kill him, so he was willing to die. So when he killed Zimri, he simply took off. He said, okay, I'm going to be killed, so I'm leaving right now. However, he didn't focus on respect, honor, anything. He just was there to save as many people as possible. The result was that he introduced to the world a new kind of priesthood. It is a chesed that has healthy level or portion of judgment in it, so the chesed can be strong enough that it will be shalom. You know, when you have peace, world peace, one of the symptoms of world peace is people respecting every person's right for happiness, property, and ownership. The moment you do not respect people's right for their property, for their happiness, for their own property, which means you simply trespass other people's rights in the name of free love and unity, you create basically unrest, destruction, and the end of economy. Communism, in the name of unconditional love to everyone, so all property belongs to the people, no ownership anymore. You know what that created? First of all, in every place communism is being introduced, it creates a bloodbath. How could that happen? When you stop respecting the covenant, in which every human being's personal space must be respected. The moment you nationalize everybody's personal personal space, which means his assets, his happiness, which means everything in the name of love and unity, you can do anything. The moment that happens, the bloodbath is starting. In the name of what? Love. In the name of unity. Look at every society that started that idea. This is what happened. Okay? So when you start with these slogans of open and free love to everyone, And then you start to disrespect people's right for property and personal space and all and happiness. That when you breach that, you go against the covenant. And what does it say on Mount Sinai? Do not steal, do not kill. It doesn't say in one condition. If it's good for society, you can steal people's property and money. No, it says do not steal, period. Do not kill, period. But what if we kill all the bad guys? What if we kill all the rich people and we give away the money to everybody? So we kill the minority, but the rest of the nation will be happy from now on forever. You know what? They tried it in many, many cases. Never worked. Never worked. So, why? You can't go against the rules. Now, so when we understand that, we can move on. Because we cannot go to all the details, but just to decipher the message of Parashat Pinchas, and especially for our days. After the story of, after that inaugurating, anointing Pinchas as a new lineage of priesthood. Yes, he is a grandson of Aaron the high priest, but he reinstitutes, he restarting, he's getting a gift of priesthood that he generated on his own, a much more stable priesthood, which means yes, you need to generate and celebrate love and kindness, but it's not complete, it's not shalom, not complete, it's not whole without a little bit of judgment, which means putting the boundaries. Yes, we love everybody, but you can't love everybody the same because people have different needs. People also have boundaries. This is my money, this is your money. This is my property, this is your property. This is my time, this is your time. This is my space, this is your space. You need to respect that. The moment there are no boundaries, there's no freedom anymore. Why? Why would people feel free to be creative if there are no boundaries? Anybody can walk into their store or into digitally into their bank and take whatever they made. The moment there are no boundaries, yeah, what are you doing? It's like it's all for the name of equality. No, it doesn't work this way. So the next story is chapter 25, verse 16. וידבר השם אל משה לאמור, צרור את המדיינים והכיתים אותם. You should hit the Midianites. So why do we need that story about revenge? Is this about revenge? But as a code, the Midianites, the root of the word Midian is din, judgment. There were 5 kings of Midian. We know every nation with 2 kings is dysfunctional. 5 kings? This is a disaster. Why are you talking about 5 kings? Because there are 5 major forces of judgment that you need to overcome, subdue, and balance in order to create harmony and peace, shalom. That goes on with another story that is mentioned later on, that Moses and Aaron is being inaugurated or anointed to be the heir of Moses. We're just a few months away from Moses' departure. And every person in the nation of Israel, every household, is designated to get his own property in the promised land. Again, it's not free for everyone. Everyone gets a property, and a property means boundaries. This is mine, this is yours. Okay? There is the boundaries. That's part of the covenant. Okay? But there were 5 girls, 5 sisters, They didn't have a father. The father was killed earlier. And they come to Moses and say, what about us? You spoke about only men getting a piece of land, an inheritance. We don't have brothers and we don't have a father. So where are we going to be? And Moses, the story goes that Moses says, I don't know, I'll ask God. And God says, Ken bnot shlofcha dovrot. The answer of God is very special, which means Yafeh Tav'u. Rashi is saying that based on earlier Midrashim. Yafeh Tav'u, that's a very, very powerful declaration. They demanded their rights, and it's beautiful they did it. Which means they did not come out of negativity. They demanded their rights as women. We're women and we don't want to be discriminated. And they came from the place, we do not believe that God, who's giving to everyone, did not think about us. What are we going to receive? And God's answer is their demand is okay, it is accepted, and it's beautiful. They demanded it, which means, what is a demand? When we want something, this is judgment. When we want something, when we need something, this is judgment. This is a left column. Okay? And that means left column. So is judgment evil? No. Judgment, again, is when it comes with faith in the good. This is healthy. You cannot have only mercy or love. You cannot have only judgment and boundaries. You need to create, and that's a blessing to Pinchas, Shalom, which means the synergy of the two forces. Only then you can have life. And later on, we have towards the end of the parasha, this is chapter 28 in the book of Numbers, from verse 1 till the end of the parasha, it's all the offerings on the daily offerings, the Shabbat offerings, the new moon offerings, the holiday offerings. This reading from chapter 28 to the end of the parasha, this is the most often read part of the whole 5 books of Moses. Why? It's being read every Rosh Chodesh, every holiday. Okay? So, not just on a certain time, like every parasha is being read in that part of the year. Now, this is being read in every holiday in Rosh Chodesh and New Moon. What does it mean? So the Ramchal is saying, why are we reading? Why are we doing the offerings? What was the purpose of the korbanot? Korbanot means in Hebrew, we learned about it when we studied about the book of Leviticus, they were about korban, coming from the word to get closer, in order to get closer to God. But there's a deeper meaning. And the deeper meaning is that the purpose of the offering, when we get closer to God, we get away from negative forces. So the power of these offerings is to stay away, again, boundaries, to generate boundaries that will leave the negativity, the evil, imbalance, negativity on the side without letting it holding on to the positivity we generate on Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, on the holidays. That is the importance of that. So, again, creating boundaries. When also the human body is all about homeostasis. What's homeostasis? That's a scientific definition of balancing the level of heat, the level of, uh, um, let's say, salts, minerals in our body, everything in our body, the level of hormones, everything has to be balanced all the time. The moment it goes off balance, one mineral, one um, protein, one uh, one uh, material, anything, because the body is made of thousands of them. When one is not balanced, the whole body gets sick, because the whole thing about the human body, any living body, is about balancing all those thousands and thousands of different uh, ingredients that create the whole. It's all about balance. The moment it goes off balance, that you start with a pathological disease. So, how do you balance? It's all starting what we said, consciousness. And now I'm coming to the real issue of this parasha. Humanity, as we are aware, is really in a bad state. What does it mean, bad state? If we spoke about shalom, about balance, we can see a lot of imbalance. A lot of stuff was there for many years. We never realized it's off balance because everything was hidden. And now things are coming up to the surface. But the most important thing is that we have too much judgment. What does it mean? We see today that the way people, let's say they vote for one persona, let's say to be the leader of the country, they don't vote for because of the loving of him, they vote because they hate, despise, detest his opponent. Because right now, according to what we see in many, many places around the world, there's such a rift between right and left, religious and secular. You just name it. It doesn't matter. It's all a myth. Why is it a myth? A myth because we're living in a society that through the media, through a lot of means, either education or all kinds of other ways of delivering information to the public, people are being conditioned from real early age to be addicted to emotional instability. Okay? And that means if you're one side, that means that you're not really aware of the philosophy, the ideology, the real deep belief system of your side, but you hate with passion the other side. And hatred and anger, which our culture is becoming like obsessed with, are basically the definition of all evil. What does that mean? Our sages are saying, Kol hakoes keilu avodah zara. Whoever is angry, whoever is jealous and hateful, that is the same level as idol worshipping. Pinhas, he stopped the imbalance that was created by free love and idol worshipping, which means connecting to free flow of energy without taking any responsibility for balancing it, which basically is a selfish connection. Anger, hatred is always selfish. You cannot love and hate in the same time. So when you hate, when you're angry, you're really self-obsessed. And the obsession and the addiction to these, they simply create the inflammation. That's the inflammation of a social order. The result that you can easily ignite. You can see that in all over the world. Ignite riots, terrible riots, bloodshed, and destruction of other people's own space, whatever you name it. On what idea? That we are right and they're wrong. You know what they say in English, you're right, but you're dead right. We're not here to be right. We're here to keep the covenant. The covenant. And what's the covenant about? The only way we can really take a stand and heal our society is being in a place of shalom, which means we cannot allow the incitement to hate others because they're wrong. We cannot let that inflammate the whatever destroys us. You know, the Zohar, in the beginning of the Zohar, Parashat Pinchas, is speaking about it very, very clearly. And he speaks about, verse 1, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור פנחס בן אלעזר. רבי אלעזר פתח ואמר, שמע בני מוסר אביך ואל תיטוש תורת אמך. Speaking about the beginning of Parashat Pinchas, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, is bringing from the first chapter of Mishlei. Listen, my son, to the morals of your father, and do not leave the wisdom of your mother. What does it mean, your father and your mother? And the Zohar says, your father, this is God, the Creator. And your mother, this is the Shekhinah, the Holy Presence. What is the morals of your father? That's the Torah. Because the Torah has a lot of rules, of limitations. This is allowed, this is not allowed. These are the boundaries. What belongs to somebody else, what belongs to somebody else, you cannot take. Wherever you can trespass other people's property or any rights they have. Okay? This is morals. This is also putting boundaries and judgment. And then it continues, verse 2, משום שכל מי שעוסק בתורה בעולם הזה, whoever is dwelling, occupying himself in the study of the Torah and manifesting it in everyday's life, in this physical reality, has the merit that the gates, the heavenly gates, will be open for him. How many lights of the other world will be open for that person? Okay? And he continues. I'm skipping some of the stuff. Verse 5. Come and see. Whoever is really strengthening his connection to the divine presence, to the Shekhinah, he will be protected by his actions from whatever is against the Shekhinah. And what does it mean? And he goes, then explains about Cosbi and Zimri, okay, and Pinchas. And what does it mean? We're living in a world that, like in ancient times, we are always being programmed, brainwashed, manipulated to become slaves of great, more powerful people's or groups of people's interest. The way to weaken a human being is to get him upset, angry, critical, and judgmental, especially angry. Because then you lose all abilities of real judgment. You lose, you just look on all of these terrible regimes in the history of atrocities, either communism and Nazism, all kinds of other. How did they get so many millions of people to rally behind the most crazy, terrible ideas that with common sense you realize that will bring only destruction to everybody involved? How could that happen? It all came from incitement. We can see whoever has a brain, we can see the incitement everywhere in the media. It doesn't matter what kind of media. Most of the media, either social media, either other radio, TV, movies. It's so much about how do you know it's incitement when you are being exposed to any kind of information. Could be even art. That's also information. And you come out angry, upset, and hateful. You are being manipulated. Because what happens to people when they're angry and manipulated? They lose their protection shields. They're weak. They can easily be manipulated into doing things they will never do with a quiet, complete mind. And that could be even very educated people. You can see people going into cults, smart, wise people with a lot of experience and study. The moment they're being incited, you lose it. We can see right now all over the planet the inflammation of individuals, groups of people, communities, societies, civilizations. It's all about rage, anger, and that weakens people's immune system. So people get more sick, they're more susceptible to all kinds of diseases, and they're more susceptible for brain control, to be incited against whoever enemy is, not for your interest, for other people's interest. How do you do something about it? So the Zohar gave us an answer. When a person is really committed, that's called a covenant, to the biblical rules. Do not hate, do not be angry. You have to really focus on the attributes that the Torah is talking about. Of love on one hand, on the other hand, keeping the boundaries. That's called a covenant. You have commitment to certain rules. You cannot do just what people are inciting you. How are you going to do that? When you study, first of all, you study daily. You meditate, you pray daily. What do you do? Etz chaim lemachzikim by the tree of life for the ones who are holding on to it. It won't happen by itself. You need to do real actions to hold on to it. When you hold on to it, when you connect to the wisdom of the Torah, it's not just the wisdom. You connect to the tree of life. You have an alternative, protective shield and mechanism as long as you are committed to the covenant. There are rules, regulations. One hand, love others as you love yourself. On the other hand, there are limitations. You cannot love unconditionally your fellow's wife. Why? She's not your wife. Okay? So unconditional love, there are boundaries. They are the people. You cannot just, if you are a man, you cannot just love unconditionally, physically every woman in sight. Or if you're a woman, you cannot do it to every man in sight or whatever. It doesn't matter, whatever your whims are. There is a covenant. And the covenant means that if we have a higher authority, you are basically answering to. And if you do
That's
that,
nice.
and
So the movie stuff.
if you do that on a regular basis, daily,
Movie stuff.
and you commit yourself daily to these ideas, you will be protected. And more than that, you can generate as a human being some shalom, some power of shalom in your own space, and then you can inspire other people to realize that they are going insane because they are basically having no alternative. They're just into the religion of scare, hate, incitement that we all experience around us. And therefore you see how all kinds of institutions in modern society will do everything possible to basically disconnect people from the Torah, from the Bible, from the Tanakh. Why? Because that's the only real alternative to all the craziness going around. So when you're really focusing on the whole healing of yourself by observing the covenant, you're really doing what is called tikkun olam. You are being part of the big, great project of correcting, fixing the world. And if you don't start doing it with yourself, how can you do it for others? But what if they are wrong? It doesn't matter. If what you are finding yourself, that you're right, because you hate those and you hate those, you're not right, you're dead right. You're part of the dark side. Okay, the same thing that is a saying in the Talmudic traditional saying, Zorek even lemerkulis. What does it mean? One of the ways to worship an idol that was very common in the Middle East in the ancient times was going to the temple of that idol. In the middle of the temple there was the stone of the idol, the statue of the idol, and the way to worship that idol was to take stones and throw them with anger at the statue. Okay? So you are stoning the idol worshipping, but that's the way of idol worshipping. Because anger is idol worshipping, and you basically, when you're angry, that was the part of connecting to the idol worshipping. So you can't really connect to the real, true one God with hatred and jealousy. And real zealousy we're talking about is the zealousy for the good. When Pinchas is killing Cozbi and Zimri, he doesn't do it because he hates them. He does it because he knows that's the only way that can stop the mass killing of the others. And he's doing it by giving himself up. He didn't want anything in return. And he got the eternal priesthood and eternal life. That's the covenant we are connecting to. And that's what creates the personal healing, community healing, and the whole healing of humanity. We have to start with our own self. Instead of blaming others, how come you're not doing that? You can't do it for others, and they cannot do it for you. You have to start it with yourself. So, wishing everybody a week full of healing for us and for the whole of humanity. Thank you.